What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Therapy on Two Wheels. Today I'm going to be talking about the 7 things that I love about the BMW F800R. Let's jump in. So I've had this bike for about 2 months now. When I put together this list of 7 things that I love, this really is a great bike, especially for a 800cc naked bike that costs less than $10,000 brand new. So my list of my top 7 things, there's probably a bunch more that I could talk about, but I wanted to boil it down to the top 7, with the first one being the heated grips and the ABS as standard on this bike. So on the BMW F800R, you get heated grips no matter which option that you choose on this bike, and there's 2 different heating levels. There's going to be level 1 and level 2. With the level 1, it's great for maybe 50 to 60 plus degree weather. That level 2 is going to be great for that lower 50s going into the 40s and even in the 30s, just depending on where you live. So it's a great option to have, especially if you live somewhere that does get colder weather. You know, at least for half of the year, it comes in handy, definitely in those colder times. And then the other option that is standard on this bike is going to be the ABS. Now, the anti-lock braking system is great. I'd say it should be on most bikes, if not all of them. There's not too many situations where people don't need ABS on their bike. I mean, maybe when they're off-roading, it is a little bit intrusive. But for something that you're going to be riding on the street, at least the majority of the time, I would think that ABS is something that you would prefer, because if you do have to slam on your brakes in an emergency situation, you're not going to be locking up your brakes at all. Especially as a newer rider, when you're not familiar with progressive braking, ABS comes in much more handy, because in those emergency situations, you're not typically thinking, oh, I got to progressively brake. You're just thinking, let me slam on the brakes, and ABS is going to prevent you from locking up those brakes and possibly going over your handlebars. So that's the first one, is the standard options are on this bike. There's a lot of other options like the stability control that you can get on here, the electronic suspension. All those are great, but having the standards of the heated grips and ABS for this price point is fantastic. And the second one that I'm going to say that I love about this bike is the seat height and foot peg position for taller riders. Now, I'm about 6'2", 200 pounds, and this bike does fit me fairly well. I've been on about 3-hour rides on this bike, not too much pain in the back, butt, or hips. Much longer than that, yeah, and I'll probably have a little bit more problems. I'd probably do a 5 or 6 hour ride tops. But as a taller rider, the position is a little bit more upright in terms of my back. My legs are not too bent, they're not tucked too far behind me, and I'm not pitched forward like on a lot of sport bikes. So for me, as a taller, bigger rider, I love the fact that this bike does have a taller seat height and a little bit more forward foot pegs compared to a lot of those super sports. The third thing that I love about this bike is going to be that low and mid-range torque. Now, there's definitely a lot of torque at the top end, don't get me wrong, on those higher RPMs, but in the 3,500 to 5,000 RPMs, especially here in second gear on these twisty roads, it's got plenty of acceleration to get me up to a very fast speed in those lower RPMs. And then when you get into the higher RPMs, you get into that 6, 7, up to 8,000, it still kicks pretty hard. But I love having that accessible power down low, especially in city traffic, because a lot of the times you're not going to be going over 50, 60 miles per hour, especially going from stoplight to stoplight. So having that accessible power right from the get-go is extremely helpful on a lot of these types of roads and in city traffic. Next thing, which can be the fourth thing here, is the average miles per gallon. For an 800cc naked bike, this gets about 45 miles per gallon on average. I actually did a video before, I'll link it right up here, where I did a test run on about, I think it was a 106-mile ride, just to see what my miles per gallon was when filled up right before, did my ride, filled up afterwards, and got right at 46 miles per gallon. And it actually has a miles per gallon kind of statistic here on the bike in the infotainment system, or information screen on the right hand side. There's one of the little options that you can use that'll tell you the average MPG, and it was actually right on. I got 46 in my calculation. The bike said 46 miles per gallon, so it was fantastic to have the confirmation that what I determined was actually the miles per gallon saying on the bike. Now, if you're going to be ringing the throttle out all the time, you're probably going to get closer to that 40, maybe 42 miles per gallon. If you're really babying it, staying those lower RPMs, under 4,000 RPM, you'll probably get closer to 50. But that average is going to be somewhere around 45 miles per gallon for this bike. The fifth thing that I love about this bike is going to be the light clutch and brake levers, especially for somebody that is coming from much bigger, heavier bikes, maybe cruisers. A lot of times those cruisers are going to have much heavier clutch and brake levers. This one is super light. I think the only other bike that I've ridden that might have had a lighter clutch was the Honda CTX 700, and that one felt like there was almost nothing there. That was my favorite clutch out of all the bikes that I've ever ridden. But this one here, there is no problems with shifting up or down into those lower gears. Very easy, very quickly, and I can just do that with one or two fingers here on my left hand. And same thing for braking with the right in these kind of lower speed twisty roads. I can just put that one finger, keep it there on the brake, and feel confident that I can easily squeeze that as needed if I'm coming up into a turn that's a little too tight, or if somebody's coming across the lane. Yeah, no problem just pulling this with one finger. If I am going to be trying to come to an emergency brake, I'm going to at least do two, maybe my full hand on there. But for these types of roads, just slowing down a little bit, that one finger. So it's super easy to pull in that right lever. Now, the sixth thing that I love about the BMW F800R is going to be the luggage rack, as well as the hard cases that are an option on this bike. But I would assume that most people that are going to be using this bike in a capacity where they're taking longer trips, because it is kind of a somewhat of a sport touring bike. You know, you got the better ergonomics and the seating position. You have the luggage rack, the side bags. If you're going to be taking this thing on longer trips, or even if it's a daily commuter and you just want to be able to carry your stuff around efficiently, the luggage rack right now, I have my biking bag. It's a large size biking bag just tied down on there. It's just fine. I could still put somebody on the back of my seat with no problems. And then having the side bags, which I don't actually have on here right now, but I do have them at home if I'm going to go on a longer trip. That makes it much easier just to pack up certain things. They're weather resistant, so they have like a rain liner or wet weather liner, so nothing's going to get wet in there, even if you hit heavy rain. So it's fantastic to have those as options if you are going to be taking this bike on longer rides. Now, the seventh and final thing that I love about this BMW F800R is the easily accessible and adjustable suspension. Now, there is an option where you can get the electronic suspension. It's going to be a little button over here on the left-hand side, which is the same button for the automatic stability control. So automatic stability control, turning it on or off is pressing it up. Pressing it down would be the electronic suspension. The person that bought this bike, that did buy this bike used, the person who bought it did not get that as an option on the bike, but on the back of the bike, on the right hand side towards the rear, or kind of in the middle, you do have a knob that just is sticking out. You can easily just twist right or left to adjust that suspension for the rear. It just makes it super easy. I've been on other bikes and owned other bikes where the suspension either requires a tool that you have to carry along with you, or it's somewhere deep in the bike where you got to maneuver around a lot of things, or be laying on the ground to adjust it. This one's super easy. You can hop off the bike in 10 seconds, adjust the suspension, hop back on, and it's super quick, super easy, no tools required. So that's the 7 things that I love about this BMW F800R. This is the 2015 model. I do have it at about 45,000 miles right now, still running strong. Let me know if you have one of these bikes, you're looking into it. If you have any questions about the bikes or want me to do any other videos, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.